Welcome to this explainer. Today we're looking at what is honestly an epic, high-stakes survival story. But the hero of our story isn't a person, it's an idea. Specifically, the idea for a new medicine. Think about it. Every single bottle of pills, every vaccine, every treatment sitting right now on your local pharmacy shelf began as just a simple concept in the mind of a scientist. But getting from that initial spark of imagination to a physical, life-saving medicine, that is an absolute gauntlet. It's literally one of the most exciting yet brutally challenging scientific fields in human history.
Okay, let's just set the scene here and establish the enormous stakes of this story. If you have an idea for a new drug today, you're looking at an average of 10 to 15 years before it ever reaches a patient. Just let that sink in for a second. Imagine dedicating over a decade of your life, day in and day out, to a single project that honestly might not even work out in the end.
And it is not just the time. We're talking about a massive financial gamble. An estimated $1 to $2 billion is spent on average testing thousands upon thousands of different compounds. And out of all those thousands of potential candidates, only one is going to survive that grueling obstacle course to actually receive marketing approval. One. So the big question is, how does that one singular medicine survive? How does it actually make it to the finish line?
To answer that, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 5 stages: the blueprint of disease, finding the perfect match, the testing gauntlet, approval and manufacturing, and finally, we'll wrap up with the future of medicine.
Starting with step 1, the blueprint of disease, where we identify the biological villain.
So before we can build a weapon, we really have to know our enemy, right? Researchers aren't just looking at the surface-level symptoms, they are hunting for the root causes. They want to find the specific pathways that are malfunctioning. Whether we're talking about genetic mutations that are driving cancer or neuron loss in Alzheimer's, understanding exactly what causes the disease is what points researchers toward a target.
And that brings us to this really crucial concept of the drug target. A drug target is a biological molecule, so think an enzyme, a receptor, or even your DNA that interacts with a medicine to produce a therapeutic effect. A great way to think about this is like a lock and a key. The disease's weak point is a specific lock. For example, in hypertension, that lock might be the angiotensin-converting enzyme. Our goal? To create a drug that acts as the absolute perfect key to fit into that lock, like ACE inhibitors, which block that enzyme and lower a patient's blood pressure.
Which brings us to part 2, finding the perfect match, the search for the key.
To find that perfect key, scientists screen millions of compounds searching for what's called a lead compound. And the places these potential cures come from are incredibly diverse and honestly pretty wild. You've got cutting-edge AI virtual screening on one end of the spectrum and natural products on the other. Actually, fun fact, did you know a very popular diabetes medication was originally derived from the venom of the Gila monster lizard? Crazy, right? Using high-throughput screening, researchers can rapidly test all these natural and synthetic compounds. But finding a match is definitely not the end of the road. That very first compound they find, it's almost never perfect. It might fit the lock, sure, but maybe it dissolves way too quickly, or perhaps it's even toxic. So medicinal chemists enter this phase called lead optimization. They repeatedly tweak the molecular structure of the compound to improve its potency, its selectivity, its stability, its solubility, and most importantly, its safety. They are meticulously, painstakingly filing down the teeth of our key until an optimal candidate finally emerges.
Moving on to part 3, the testing gauntlet, surviving the trials. Now, with our newly optimized key in hand, the stakes get much, much higher. Before a medicine is ever given to a human being, it goes through really intense preclinical animal and cell studies. Scientists are essentially looking at a two-way street here. First, pharmacokinetics, which is how the body absorbs, distributes, and metabolizes the drug. And second, pharmacodynamics, which is what the drug actually does to the body. Basically, is it safe and does it even work?
Well, if it passes those lab tests, it enters human clinical trials. You can kind of think of this whole process like a video game leveling system where the difficulty just ramps up at every single stage. Phase 1 is the initial safety check with about 20 to 100 healthy volunteers. If it's safe, awesome, it levels up to Phase 2, which involves 100 to 300 actual patients to prove it's effective and to figure out the optimal dose. If it survives that, it faces the final boss battle, Phase 3. This is a massive trial with
1,000 to 3,000 patients, where researchers have to confirm its efficacy and, this is the crucial part, compare it against standard treatments that already exist to prove it's actually a better option. And that leads us to Section 4, Approval and Manufacturing, the final test. Let's say our compound miraculously survives all three of those trial phases. The drug works, but now it faces the ultimate gatekeepers. Regulatory authorities, like the FDA in the US, the European Medicines Agency, the MHRA, and national authorities across Africa. They step in to review absolute mountains of documentation. They meticulously scrutinize the clinical evidence and all that safety data, and they are only going to grant approval when it is definitively proven that the benefits of the medicine clearly, undoubtedly outweigh the risks. Once it's finally approved, well, you have to actually make the drug on a massive scale, and manufacturing must strictly follow good manufacturing practice, or GMP. Think about it. When you take a pill, you need to know it's exactly the same as the pill you took yesterday. GMP ensures flawless quality control so that every single batch meets those strict safety standards. Because at the end of the day, consistency is absolutely essential for patient safety. Finally, Section 5, the future of medicine, the cheat codes. That whole process we just walked through, that is the traditional 15-year journey. But our world is changing so rapidly, and emerging technologies are acting like cheat codes for this process. Instead of manually screening millions of compounds, AI and quantum computing can just instantly predict drug-target interactions and design molecules from scratch. Add in CRISPR gene editing and precision medicine, and we are looking at a future where we totally bypass traditional hurdles to develop highly personalized therapies at speeds we've never seen before. As author Fortunate Beanbay so perfectly sums it up, drug discovery represents one of humanity's greatest scientific achievements. And yeah, for sure, the process involves incredibly high costs. There are frequent clinical failures and massive, frustrating regulatory complexities, but all of this relentless dedication, all this collaboration and innovation, it's ultimately focused on one single thing: the patient. The goal is always, always to deliver faster, safer, and more effective therapies to the people who need them worldwide. We've seen how a drug travels from a mere idea to a rigorously tested reality. But with AI and gene editing now entering the chat, that 15-year timeline is shrinking fast. The possibilities are expanding exponentially. So, the next time you're looking at the medicines currently sitting in your cabinet, ask yourself, what will the next breakthrough look like? Keep that question in mind as biotechnology continues to evolve. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and we'll see you next time.